I took the used tuna cans that everyone throws away and turned them into a mini stove that can actually cook. And surprisingly, it works much better than I expected after being used. Tuna cans are usually thrown away, but with a bit of creativity, they can become the base for a simple and compact mini stove. This idea not only helps make use of discarded items and reduce waste, but also shows how familiar materials can be turned into something useful for basic cooking needs. This is a DIY project focused on experimentation and learning, with an emphasis on practicality and the spirit of recycling. And of course, any work involving heat and fire should always be done carefully and safely. First, I removed all the paper label from the outside of the can, so the metal surface was fully exposed. This makes it look cleaner, with no glue or paper residue left behind, and also makes it easier to see what I'm doing and work on it in the next steps. Next, I clean an empty paint can lid to reuse it as an additional part for the mini stove. Using this extra piece not only helps reduce waste, but also makes the project feel more complete. To deal with the dried paint on the lid, I use a small amount of thinner as a cleaning solvent, simply to make the surface neat and smooth again. I did this in a well-ventilated area and paid attention to safety, since it's a volatile substance. With just a few light scrubs, most of the dried paint came off, revealing a much cleaner and more even metal surface. It was clear that I didn't need to use much force. The old paint peeled away quite easily on its own. Next, I marked several points on the bottom of the can so I could shape the holes evenly and symmetrically later. Marking them in advance makes the layout clearer and helps avoid misalignment or mistakes during the next steps. I just arranged the points in a neat, easy to see pattern, so the following process would be more accurate and safer. After finishing the markings, I started drilling each point slowly and in a controlled way, focusing only on making sure the holes appeared exactly where I had planned. I kept the process neat and avoided rushing, so that it wouldn't get dented or distorted. Next, I marked the hole positions on the paint can lid to match the layout I had already made on the tuna can. This helps all the parts line up properly and look neater when assembled. I simply spaced the points evenly and made them easy to see, then checked everything once more before drilling. After finishing the markings, I continued drilling along the points I had just set, making each hole slowly to keep the edges clean and even. After finishing the contents, I also reused a lid. I drew a circle in the center of the lid, imagining it would act like a flat washer for a later assembly step. After drawing the circle, I drilled a hole right in the center of the lid to create an opening at the exact position I had planned. I worked slowly and steadily, focusing on keeping the hole neatly within the center of the circle so the shape would look more balanced. I cut along the circle I had drawn to separate the round piece from the lid. I worked slowly and steadily, just following a marked line, so the cut edge would be clean and evenly round. After removing it, I checked it once more and lightly trimmed any uneven spots so it would look more like a washer. I used a bolt and a nut to pass through the drilled holes, then fastened the pankin lid and the tuna can together. I tightened it just enough so the two parts sat flush and held firmly in place without shifting or coming loose. To make the structure more secure, I added two flat washers, placing one on each side of the bolt before tightening the nut. These washers help distribute the pressure evenly, prevent the thin metal from being dented, and keep the parts fixed and better aligned. After tightening it to a snug fit, the whole assembly looked much neater and more stable. Next, I reused two pull tabs from cans to make a handle for the stove. I just positioned them evenly so it would be comfortable to hold and not get in the way. These two small pieces make it easier and more convenient to move the stove around, while still keeping the spirit of reusing discarded items. Next, I made a simple stand so I could place a pot on top while cooking. I reused a few small pieces of metal I had on hand, bending and arranging them to form a neat support frame that fits snugly around the stove body. The goal here was to create a surface that's stable enough to keep the pot from tipping, while still keeping the design lightweight and minimal. This stove stand is simple, but it makes placing a pot on top much safer and more convenient. And of course, any experiments involving heat and fire should always be done carefully and safely. I trimmed off the excess metal from the can and the extra length of the bolt, so the whole setup would look cleaner and neater. Next, I use pliers to gently squeeze the body of the tin can to reduce the diameter slightly, just enough to make it easier to place the other can on top. I did it in small, gradual adjustments, keeping the pressure even and avoiding squeezing too hard and deforming it too much. Once it fit properly, the assembly became neater and more stable, while still keeping safety and careful handling as priority. Next, I marked 2 more holes on the sides of the can to serve as the mounting points for the handle. I positioned them symmetrically and at a comfortable height for gripping, so the result would look balanced and be more convenient to use. Marking them in advance helps make the drilling more accurate and tidy, and reduces unnecessary mistakes. After finishing the markings, I drilled the 2 holes at the positions I had just set, working slowly and in a controlled way. The goal was simply to make clean holes in the right places, so the handle could be attached securely later. I used screws to attach the 2 pull tabs to the pre-drilled holes. I passed the screws through the pull tabs and tightened them just enough so they would sit firmly in place and not twist. Once finished, the 2 handles were neatly secured and much more convenient to hold. After that, I gently bent the 2 pull tabs outward to shape them more like real handles. I adjusted each side so the curve was even, leaving enough space to grip comfortably while still keeping them sturdy. Next, I'll use alcohol as a fuel for this stove, mainly because it's easy to find and simple to work with. It's a convenient choice for a small DIY project like this, and it makes testing and using the stove more straightforward and practical. To refill the fuel more neatly, I use a syringe as a small pump. This helps me control the amount of alcohol better, avoid spills, and keep the workspace clean. When I lit it, the alcohol produced a clean blue flame. Overall, this mini stove is quite practical and easy to carry. It can be useful for simple tasks like warming up or for light use while camping, thanks to its compact size and straightforward design. Even so, anything involving heat and fire should always be used carefully and with proper attention to safety. In addition to being compact and easy to carry, this mini stove is also functional enough for simple cooking tasks. It can be used to heat up food or boil small amounts of water, making it useful for basic outdoor or emergency situations. The 3-leg stand is also very practical. It provides stable support for a pot, keeps everything balanced, and makes the stove easier and more convenient to use. Overall, turning discarded food cans into a mini stove is a simple but meaningful way to reuse everyday waste. It shows how ordinary materials can be given a second life with a bit of creativity, while keeping the design practical and lightweight. This kind of DIY project isn't just about the final result, but also about learning, experimenting, and making better use of what would otherwise be thrown away, always with careful attention to safety when working with heat and fire. This little project shows that with a bit of creativity, even simple, discarded items like food cans can be turned into something useful. The mini stove isn't about being perfect or powerful. It's about learning, experimenting, and making the most of what's already around us. More than anything, it's a reminder that DIY is as much about the process as the result, and that working carefully and safely always comes first when heat and fire are involved.